So, when I had originally heard there'd be a John Wick spinoff that wouldn't be helmed by Chad Stahelski, I was initially skeptical of it, and my expectations weren't that high. But while not perfect, Ballerina was ultimately much better than I expected it to be, which I should have known better since it was written by one of the writers of the third and fourth Wick entries. It does a nice job of expanding upon the lore of this universe, getting more into the backstory of the Ruska Roma from the third movie, and introducing the main villains known as the Cult, and the aesthetic feels consistent with the main set of movies. And with this focusing on mostly a new set of characters, this winds up being a little more story-driven than the other Wick entries were, especially the later ones. And I know in some ways that sounds kind of weird because each John Wick movie would add a lot to the lore and add more elements to this interconnected crime world. But what I mean is, whereas the other movies were almost relentless in terms of their action, Ballerina takes noticeably more beats in between the fight scenes, especially in the first half. And I can commend that, since the characters we usually follow from the main movies aren't the primary focus here. Though I will say, in doing so, this can still feel a little clunky. It'll introduce some new characters who are meant to have this big emotional backstory, but then it kind of brushes them off a little quickly after some big revelatory moment. And I know most people don't go to these movies for anything besides the action, which I get. It's just for some of the emphasis placed here on backstory, the execution just throws off the pacing a bit. Even the inclusion of John Wick himself, while he's in this for more than just a scene, it does feel a bit shoehorned in. So that, along with its primary rescue storyline feeling pretty by the numbers, playing a little into that lone wolf and cub trope, and underutilizing Gabriel Byrne as the primary antagonist, were my main gripes with this. But all that being said, there are still two major elements to this that really make it work. One is Ana de Armas, who's really great here, and makes even the more generic material feel compelling as she goes on this quest for revenge. She allows the character to not feel like just a straight-up clone of John Wick, so I thought that was really nice. And two, which is the main thing that drives a lot of these movies, the action set pieces are all great here. Again, there's a bit more downtime between these moments, but when they kick in, it's mostly just as good as the fights in the main movies. There are plenty of great creative choices for what characters use as weapons, from ice skates to glass dishes to a pretty badass one-on-one featuring flamethrowers. And it's all done with the same slick fight choreography as the main Wick movie, so I was pretty happy with it. And while it results in something that's not quite on the same level as those movies, it's still an overall solid entry to this iconic franchise.